there is always polarization on everything. And so, yes, emotional intelligence is definitely one of those things, which is why I led with we were created as emotional beings. It is a part of who we are. We were created with emotions.
Hey, friend, I am so excited that you are joining us today. I have an incredible guest. I cannot wait for you to hear every word of wisdom that she has to share. And I learned so much from her. We are welcoming today Natarsha Prince Sanders, and she is a national and international motivational speaker. She is highly sought after, and I'm so excited she had some time in her very busy schedule to visit with us today. She is someone who loves to provide people with tools to successfully navigate their vocational journey. But she also deals with a lot of what we talk about here as far as things that block us and get in our way. And some of her fantastic wisdom is really gonna, I think, help you immediately once you listen to some of what she has to say. So Natarsha, she's a member of the 2023 Black Theologians Leadership Cohort at Princeton Theological Seminary. She is also part of the 2021-22 Emerging Writers Cohort at Collegeville Institute. She is also a recipient of the 2021 Rising Leader Fellowship Award from Sojourners and the 2022 Women's Leadership Award from Schreiner University. So she's just got every award in the world. And she comes from a place of faith and spirituality. And it is just really cool to listen to her weave together faith, self-development, and how to be successful out in whatever discipline that you are in. I think anybody can relate to what she has to share with us. So I'm just really excited to have her with us today. And she will also be wrapping up her doctorate degree as well. So soon she will be Dr. Natarsha Prince Sanders. So again, help me welcome my dear friend, Natarsha.
I'm Dr. Charlie Hornis, highly anxious people pleaser turned master certified professional life coach. Learning to manage my brain was so life-changing for me that I got certified so that I could teach these incredible evidence-based practices to you. Are you ready for massive change? Let's go.
Hey friend, welcome back. I am so excited to talk to Natarsha today. One of my very favorite people, brilliant, smart, and I just cannot wait to hear what she's got to say for us. So Natarsha, welcome. Would you please give us a little intro about yourself?
What up? What up? Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me here. I am Natarsha, as you have said, right here in the great state of what? Texas. So right now, I am here living and working and trying to make my corner of the world a bit better than it was when I found it. And I am a career educator. That means that I have spent quite a few years in public education, and I am not formally in public education anymore, but I do still educate. I'm working on my doctoral degree. And so that means I am enthralled in lots of books and research and articles and the things that we are required to do to matriculate through higher education. So that takes a lot of my time. But when I'm not reading for academia, I am walking around and playing in nature because that keeps me sane. So that's a little bit about me. I'm an auntie, and I love that title because you get to spoil the kids and send them back to their mamas and daddies. You know, that's fun.
I love it. I know you're an amazing aunt, so that's so cool.
Love my babies.
Yeah, girl. So you are a keynote speaker. You travel all over the state and the country. You are highly sought after. I've heard your keynotes live. I love them. You have so much wonderful things to teach
Thank
all
you.
of us on how to be better at this thing we call life, how to do it better, and how to solve a lot of the stuff folks out there listening to this can solve. One of the things I think is so interesting about your work and my work is that they actually parallel, and often we use different language. I had a friend on that I recently interviewed that should be coming out soon, who talks about manifestation, which is such a dirty word, but
we love that word.
Actually, well, yeah, but some people are like, "Ooh, that's too woo woo," and it turns them off, and they would turn off the channel. But
okay,
actually, yeah, right. If you actually listen to her talk, though, when I do the show, she's totally based in science, and as are you. When we talk about perspective, we're talking about thought work.
Absolutely.
And changing our thoughts incrementally into a different thought that causes a different feeling, but that is true and believable.
One of the things that helps us get to a place where we can shift our perspective, because in this scenario, it's like, I don't know which comes first, right? What I do know is there is a point within us where that we will reach where we are primed to grow, right? So there gets a point in us where we either will say, okay, I'm gonna stay in this cycle, right? Or we say, I'm gonna move forward. I'm busting through. I'm manifesting, to use your friend's language. I'm getting through this, right? When that happens, we get to make a choice. And what I found in my research is more often than not, we choose the path that we know best. And that keeps us in a cycle. That keeps us in a cycle of reoccurring themes in our lives. Like, why does this keep happening? Because we keep making the same choices. When we are primed to grow or go, more often than not, we choose what is familiar and comfortable. And so the other thing about this perspective shift, we got to be willing to be uncomfortable. And that requires some intelligence. So what I like, one of the things that I'm really into as it relates to emotional intelligence, and, y'all, let me just say this. It's something that we've always had as humans. Emotions aren't new, okay? In fact, as emotional beings, I believe that our emotions are a gift. Our feelings are a gift. They are here to inform us. And the intelligence around our emotions is a science that was, like, I will say, formally developed and evolved in the early 90s, late 80s. But it really is just understanding, managing, and how we handle our emotions, our own emotions. So it's not about me trying to tell Charlie how to feel. It's not Charlie trying to tell me how to feel. It really is about Charlie handling Charlie, Natarsha handling Natarsha, our own emotions. It is required that we do that because this really is the only thing we can control. That's it. Our emotions and how to manage and how we operate within our emotions. One of the things I remember growing up as it relates to how I kind of think about my emotions today as an adult, my parents, particularly my mom, would always affirm how I felt. So if I'm feeling the kind of way, like if my mom saw me crying, or she might say, I see you crying. Tell me about those tears. Or she might say, what you crying for? Right. And then she would let me tell her. Or if I was noticeably upset, you look mad. You angry? Let's talk about it. So there was always an affirmation. Oh, you're so happy. Tell me about these jumps for joy, right? So there was always an acknowledgement of an emotion. And then there was an investigation about what around me or within me is causing me to feel this way. One of the things that she also taught me was you feel how you feel, but your actions need not impact you negatively or anyone else. So if I'm angry, be angry. That does not give me the right to go punching somebody, knocking windows out, but I can be angry. What do I get to do with myself when I'm angry then? And so this is a lot of times where we as adults mess up. We are taught, a lot of us at a very early age, to not even understand or name our emotions. It's just move on. Oh, you move on. Don't bring that in here. Leave all of that at the door. And that is such a destructive practice. So one of the things about intelligence and being able to understand perspective in the midst of how you feel is being able to name that. And in order to be intelligent about it, you have to understand and know it. That requires some getting to know you, right? And so our intelligence really does impact how we govern ourselves and how we interact and engage with others. But I like to say, as it relates to emotional intelligence, it's the new IQ, right? So, I mean, yes, people, please still be smart. Please know what you're talking about and know what you're doing. Like, okay, please. And people with high levels of emotional intelligence are much more successful in their day-to-day lives than those with simply just high levels of intellect, right? Like what we would call book smart. It takes both. It takes both. And that's what the early science in the 90s is teaching us. And we are evolving into learning as a society. You got to have your emos on right, is what my nieces would say. Your emo ain't right. So you got to get your emo right. So emotional intelligence is very important as it relates to perspective, because you have to be able to identify when you need a shift and where you're shifting to. And that requires some intelligence about your emotions.
I want to back up because I think that you bring up something really important. And I also feel like you are specifically in tune to discuss this. We are socialized, especially in the United States, especially as women, but men are also socialized. But, we can only speak from our own social location. So, self-identified women. We're socialized to not be emotional, to not be dramatic, to not overreact. All this bullshit that women are told. Exactly. And this comes up almost every episode that I've talked with women because it comes up and everybody mentions emotion. But when we're taught socially, and you may not be taught this in your home. I wasn't, but magazines, buses, billboards, TV, commercials, women live in this unrealistic expectation dichotomy of you have to be super sexy, but you also have to be a housewife. At what point, you have to have total control of your emotions and never cry or you're too dramatic, blah, blah, blah. But you also have to, like you said, people now expect you to be emotionally intelligent, which also can be a reprimand to women if they are having feelings. Oh, well, you're not emotionally intelligent because you're not controlling your emotion. And again, it's putting the onus on women. It's abusive to women. It's verbally and psychologically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually abusive to women.
Yeah.
When we use incredible tools like what you're talking about as a way to beat people up. And what I would say, the last thing is, when we get emotional because of mistreatment, and again, I'm talking about high functioning, like your coworker mistreating you or your boss or whatever. If we're talking about, abuse, domestic abuse, then no, this is not what we're talking about here.
Right. Get out.
High functioning interpersonal conflict.
Yeah.
When a woman, for example, again, our social location, holds a coworker, a boss, somebody who is clearly inappropriate in a workspace, accountable, and may have some passion around that because we're not going to tolerate it or whatever. It can be turned, instead of being held accountable, somebody can say, oh, you're not emotionally intelligent, or, and they don't have to be accountable anymore. And now you feel like something's wrong with you. And you've been like, whataboutism, if the tide is turned. So how do we teach, especially women, but men are socialized too on the opposite side? How do we teach them? This is not to be used as a bat to beat yourself up, nor is it allowed to be beaten up by other people. It is so you can do better and not feel horrible, not feel terrible, which is my catch thing.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
One of the things I like to say is there is always polarization on everything. And so, yes, emotional intelligence is definitely one of those things, which is why I led with, we were created as emotional beings. It is a part of who we are. We were created with emotions, right? And so knowing how to use how we feel to our advantage or not to harm us and others is really important. I think as it relates to educational devices, when we are able to teach all genders the same thing at the same time, that helps level out where we are. For example, having the emotional intelligence conversation in a room of both men and women is important. It's important because then we get to hold one another accountable for the same information at the same time. It's not good to try to hold someone accountable for information that they haven't been presented with, which is why most of the time, every time I stand up to give a keynote address, I talk about how we receive, how we engage with the information that I'm going to present. Inevitably, there are those who will just not agree. But there is a way in which we can disagree without tearing down people. That is not it's not an emotionally intelligent thing to do. And so when we talk about how to do this, how to engage in conflict is what we're talking about. Because first of all, it's natural. It is normal. Do we have to agree with everybody 100% of the time? No. How do we go about our disagreements and still honor one another's humanity? I don't have to agree with everything you say to see that you're a human being. I want you to be able to have your freedoms, right? I want all of us to be able to have all the freedoms. And I want us to do it in a way that honors everybody's humanity. So the moment where we're talking emotional intelligence, right? So the moment my intelligence does not allow me to see your humanity, then something's missing. That's when I start saying, okay, your level of emotional intelligence is not enabling me to be able to engage with you. So are there times where I've had to release myself from people's presence because they could not engage with my humanity? Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are also times where I am able to engage because people are actually trying to do so in a way that honors everybody's dignity and humanity. So one of the things about emotional intelligence, the very first thing, is it sees things, people, namely, for who we are. Human first. That's it. That's all. Right? The very first thing I see when I look at you, look at that human, right? And then there are other things that I assign, but first and foremost, that's a level of intelligence that is so basic though, Charlie, that a lot of us don't even realize when we're dehumanizing people. But it happens so often. To give an example, we talk a lot about women's reproductive rights. And anytime you hear that, if all you see, if think about what comes up in your mind when you hear women's reproductive rights. If you don't see a woman, you have dehumanized that situation. When you hear women's reproductive rights, if the first thing that comes up in your mind is not a woman, you've dehumanized the situation. Does that make sense? Because we're talking about humanity first, and as a measure, as the bottom measure of emotional intelligence. And all I'm saying is you gotta see a human being in order to grow to an emotionally intelligent place. If you can't do that, then you can't grow.
I want to tie two things together. Apparently, I have a gift at tying things that people don't see any kind of connection to. We're in Texas, and right now there's a big deal with women, right? And our personhood and our autonomy, regardless of how we feel about the issue of women's reproductive rights. Basically, what people don't seem to understand is we're no longer free citizens in this state as women. And I don't think people really understand that that's what's happening, is that 50% of the population or more in the United States are no longer free citizens under the Constitution of the United States. The rest of it doesn't matter. I don't care opinion, right? I don't care one side or the other, or this is right and this is wrong, blah, blah, blah. What matters is we're no longer free citizens. And every time I have this conversation, people outside of Texas say, well, why don't you just leave? Well, there's two things. Number one, socioeconomic reasons. A lot of people can't leave. Wow. I wish I could just pack up. What am I, Beverly Hillbillies? Like, I'm just going to pack it up and go. You know, that costs a lot of money. There's a lot of people, and a lot of people that are struggling with issues of their personhood and autonomy may be in a lower socioeconomic state, because the people that aren't don't have this problem. They don't.
You hit the nail on the head. You're absolutely
one way
right.
or the other, whatever your decision is, which is your decision, whatever that is, you don't have the means to do one or the other, raise a child or not, or whatever you're going to do. Right. So that's number one. Mm-hmm. Leaving is a privilege. Number two, I'm a Texan. I was born here. I ain't leaving my state. There's nowhere else in the world I want to live, because I'm a Texan, proud Texan. And what that means is I'm going to fight for my right to have full citizenship in this country as a 50%, Yes. So there's the other thing. Yes. I do not want to leave. Why would I? I would rather stay in my state and be a full citizen, right? With all the
absolutely
the rights of a democracy, which right now we don't have, which is crazy to think about in this day and age. You talk about self-trust being a huge thing.
Oh, yeah.
So this is where these two things are going to come together. Mm-hmm. How do you teach women especially, but everybody, to trust themselves when they are facing somebody who is using emotional intelligence against them and saying, oh, well, you're this, you're that, you're the other, when you're holding someone accountable, or you're pushing back and saying, I'm not a free citizen, or all the things that are happening right now in this divisive world? How do people say, my gut tells me that I'm right in this for me? And how do women especially not fall into cognitive dissonance where everyone around them is telling them something's wrong with them, and their guts are saying, no, you're being a jerk?
Absolutely. So again, we're born with the sense of who we are. We know our own bodies and how to listen to the message of our bodies early on better than anyone else. And we know how to alarm people when we need assistance, right? So one of the easiest things to go to about how we listen to our bodies is when our stomachs growl. We know that means we should put food in it. Or when we need water, we know the feeling of thirst. It's not always something that we can like literally describe. How does it feel to be thirsty? We don't really ask ourselves that. We just know when we need to grab water and drink it. And we do that because we trust our bodies, right? I don't necessarily need someone to tell me you should drink water. I don't know if you remember, you probably know, and I'll help the audience recall Maslow's hierarchy. When you think about the very basic is physiological: food, water, shelter, right? And so it's really easy, like we just said, to know that those things are necessary and they need to be in place for that level of need. It's basic. And then there's security, right? And safety. So is there a family who loves me? Do I have social stability? Are like, is my housing secure? That sort of thing. Then there's the belonging. And this is a big topic of conversation right now. Belonging. When we talk about being in spaces where we are welcomed and if it's safe for you to be there, there are some people who are listening to this who know that their sense of belonging in their place of employment is in jeopardy. So you don't feel like you belong. You don't feel connected in that. And that is on Maslow's hierarchy. So you're not off when you call into question your sense of belonging. You know when you feel like you belong in a place and when you don't. And that is not up for question. If you're in a place and you don't feel like you belong, you're not wrong. That is not something I can quit. Like, I cannot tell someone when they are thirsty. So in this same hierarchy, I cannot tell somebody when they belong. That is part of self-actualization. And so if someone is questioning you, send their questions to the lowest pits of hell, because just like when you want some water, when you belong somewhere. And so that, again, that's why I connect those two, because it's easy to tell when you're thirsty. But this same part of our brain is telling us when we belong. One of the things that saved me during this time is one of my friends sent me it's like a graphic that talked about people of color entering the workplace and how there's a honeymoon period. And she was like, within 2 years, you'll be gone just because look at you. It was accurate. I wanted to do this job, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't have applied. I wanted to do it, and I was called to it, and I was excited about it, and I wanted it to work. And I also knew statistics had shown, I'll say it that way, that it would not pass a certain point. And statistics were right. Statistics were just, they're statistics for a reason. We look at numbers for a reason. Any way we can help equip ourselves to do work that we feel called to do that is a tool. That's another tool. And so I feel like when my friend offered that diagram to me, it was liberating, right? It was a way of saying there are so many other people who have experienced this that now there's a diagram for it. And it can name exactly what is about to happen with you in this place. And so in a lot of regards, it helped me be accountable for my personhood in ways that, had I not had that when I got it, I probably would have been a lot worse off than I was. And also understanding that we are our own, right? Like I really am responsible for how I handle my emotions, and I can't give that to nobody else. even though, like people will treat you how they treat you, you still have to own who you are as a human being, right? There's nothing wrong with trusting people. You're supposed to have friends. You're supposed to have all of that. You're supposed to have a good community of people. And you still in charge. You still got to be in charge of who you are. And I feel like tools like these help us in the process and on the journey of just being our best selves and living our best life. Because that's what we after. We want to be our best and live our best. And there is nothing wrong with that.
Is that diagram something that you are able to share?
Yes, I will. Uh-huh.
Okay. So maybe because I bet people are going to be interested. Maybe you can have that either on your website or whatever, and people need to put in an email and maybe they can get a copy or something. I don't know, but
yeah,
keep an eye on Natarsha because maybe she can set up something like that to share it, or if not, she can share it with me and I can do it. So
absolutely,
I want a copy of whatever that is. That sounds amazing.
It's good stuff.
What do you say to somebody who's sitting right there in this right now, feeling like something's wrong with them? They can't get life right. They can't do this. Everybody else around them's getting it right. And everyone, nobody, blah, 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 approval, validation. I feel like crap about myself. Like none of that's true.
There are about half of the people who will listen to this who are being led by someone who they should be leading. Right? And so sometimes instead of us, like an emotionally intelligent person will be like, you know what? Charlie does it a lot better than me. So I'm going to ask Charlie to take this on. And maybe I can do this part better. So I'm going to do this. And together that makes a whole. Somebody who lacks emotional intelligence will see Charlie as competition. And instead of working to make the whole environment better, they make it competitive and disgusting. I'm not talking about competitive where like fun, right? Like, okay, on one of my jobs I had, we had to walk a mile a day. Like that's trying to be healthy, right? Like that's fun type stuff because we would do it together. I'm talking about competitive, like I'm not going to tell her or him about this opportunity because I want it for myself. And everybody likes them. So I want to keep them out of this setting. Nastiness, right? Competitive nastiness that actually hinders your ability to grow in a work environment. I just really think it comes from lack of self-actualization, which is the very top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, when you can start realizing and actualizing who you are, where your creativity comes to life, where you have your morality, you sense your morality and you're able to embed it into everything you do, like it is a part of who you are, because everything else is met. All the other needs are met. So now I can be creative. Now I can be spontaneous a little bit. Now, my morals are top notch, right? I'm not being mean to people because meanness is immoral. That's one of the things that lets me know when when people's needs aren't met, when they're just mean. You just mean. Why you mean? What's missing? It makes me ask, what's missing in their life? It's not a justification. Like nobody gets a pass at being mean to me. But I do know when people are mean to me or just mean in general, they missing something. And so it makes me yearn for them to have it, because I don't want a world that's so full of broken adults that now we start taking rights of other adults. Hey, Texas.
Oh yeah, you mean where we're living now?
Right? That part. But yeah, so that's what I would say, Charlie. I really just think it comes from me, adults, and a lack of emotional intelligence. Like, bottom line, you really can't lead people if you can't lead yourself. There's a book I'm reading through right now by Prentice Hemphill, amazing thought leader. He's a social scientist, And the title is What It Takes to Heal: How Transforming Ourselves Can Change the World. We've talked a lot about self-actualization, perspective of self, emotional intelligence, like knowing yourself and how to govern. So I think this quote is really important for this moment. And I think I would like to offer it in this space for your listeners, Charlie, if that's okay. They say, somewhere along the way, we were taught to stop feeling instead of being taught to stop what harms us. Okay. As though the feeling were our enemy. As though the feeling were hurting or harming us. To move forward and address the harm, we have to feel. As Audre Lorde said in her essay, poetry is not a luxury. The white fathers told us, I think, therefore I am. Nothing wrong with that. The Black mother within each of us, the poet, is teaching us and whispers in our dreams, I feel, therefore I can be free. So in this regard, our feelings are a pathway to our freedom because we are connected. Thoughts are necessary, right? I think, therefore I am 100%. And I feel, therefore I can be free. So it's not one or the other, it's both and. I think, therefore I am. And I feel, therefore I can be free. Our feelings, I believe, really are a pathway to our liberation. It introduces us to who we are. And when we know who we are, we get to introduce ourselves to other people in a way that frees them up to introduce themselves and be themselves. I have so many people who want to be in my presence because of who and how I am. And I don't apologize for that. I work hard to be a liberated person. And it's not easy. It's work, which is why a lot of people choose to be bound, because it's being free is work, right? And so I don't say this in any way other than in ways that I hope are meaningful and helpful. If you really want to be free in who you are and free to operate in your full humanity, then let your feelings be that pathway. And also be able to think through it. That's why I say it's both and. You got to be able to think about this and feel it while you're thinking about it. So, because we're learning to trust ourselves again.
I think you've taken us on a full circle of what emotional intelligence is supposed to be. Like it's about protecting yourself like you're a little baby bird, and you're not going to let people take a bat to your baby bird. Anything else you want to leave us with? Because I want to get you going on the rest of your day. I've taken
also, there's some stuff on centering the sacred centering the sacred, 3 words, if you want to look at that as well. So I can be found in a lot of places, but if all else fails, Natarsha Sanders, I stay with the name my mom and daddy gave me. That's that.
All right. Any last words?
Just gratitude. Find something to be thankful for today, y'all, and watch it change your day.
I love that we can speak honestly and freely and laugh with each other, and that you put up with my own personal ignorance. And I'm just a big fan, and you are effervescent, and I hope other folks get to meet you like I do, because you're life changing, and I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, and thank you for letting me chat with you today. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Okay, well, you have an awesome day, and we will talk soon.
All right, you too. Take care.